What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the Navarrette versus Valdez breakdown video, as Emmanuel Navarrete is set to defend his title, his WBO super featherweight title at 130 pounds against former two-division world champion Oscar Valdez on August 12th on ESPN. Now, before we get into that, if you guys could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support as I try to build my channel up here. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you could always give me a thumbs down or leave a comment letting me know why. Let's get now into this fight. Now, if you guys haven't seen my breakdown videos before, I fully break down each fighter and what they, you know, basically I start in a fight like this, it's for a title. I start with the champion and then go to the challenger. So, you know, but first I talk about what the fight means to boxing, to the division, all that good stuff. Then I get into each fighter, starting with the champion. I will, you know, I'll say what he's done coming into the fight, what he's going to be doing, or what he's done coming into the fight, how hot he is, what he needs to do, you know, to win the fight, and then other questions. And then I'll ask the same questions of the challenger. And then, is it better for boxing if one of the other wins? And then finally, the final question is, you know, our final thing is my prediction on the fight. So this fight now, what does it mean? Well, it's a big time fight at 130. To me, it's basically going to give you the de facto #1 guy for the moment at 130 pounds. Because it's a wide open division and all the champions there just haven't done enough to prove themselves. But Emmanuel Navarrete, 3-division world champion. He moved up from 126 where he was champ and defeated Liam Wilson in the last fight to win the vacant title. He was actually supposed to fight Valdez for the vacant belt, but Valdez had an injury. So, you know, Valdez, he's the former #1 guy. You know, he unseated, he had unseated Miguel Berchelt back in 2021, was a top dog till he lost it to Shakur Stevenson, but Shakur Stevenson moved up to 135. So this basically based on resume, these are the two top guys right now at 130 pounds, and they're going to collide in an all-Mexican war. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a really good fight and really good for boxing. It's good for Top Rank moving forward. You know, we don't know if one of these guys, whoever comes out of it, if they stay winning, you know, they could end up being an opponent for Neo and Nue, the monster who just you know, became unified champ at 122 and is probably going for undisputed next there. Or if Vasily Lomachenko, this would be, the winner of this fight would be an attractive fight for Lomachenko if Lomachenko decides to move back down to 130. So I think whoever comes out of this one, as long as it's a decisive victory, we could be seeing, you know, them as the top dog and the darling for Inoue moving up or Lomachenko moving down, you know. And if it's a good enough, close enough fight, we could see a rematch. So a lot going on in this fight. It's a great matchup, and you really don't want to miss it. It's two guys that throw a shitload of punches, fighting for the top spot at 130 pounds. Now, let's get into each fighter. We start with the champion, Emmanuel Navarrete. What has he done rolling into this fight? Well, we usually go back to his last 3 fights. His last 3 fights date back to October of 2021, where he defeated Joet Gonzalez, the always tough Joet Gonzalez. It was a good action fight, but he just outworked him, outgunned him, outclassed him. 12-round unanimous decision to retain his title. Then the second of his last 3 fights took place last year in August when he took on Eduardo Baez, a veteran, and he was actually down on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, but he just kept punching, just kept working, and he ended Baez with a body shot in a 6th round, brutal body shot to retain the featherweight title again at 126. Then in his last fight in February, he moved up to super featherweight and challenged for the vacant belt against Liam Wilson. Took a knockdown in the 4th round, but then broke down Wilson and got back into the fight and ended up stopping the Australian Liam Wilson in the 9th round to capture a championship in his 3rd weight class, becoming only the 10th Mexican in, 10th Mexican-born fighter to win championships in 3 different weight classes. So, he's rolling right now. Emmanuel Navarrette's hot, he's hungry, and he's ready to go. Now, what does Navarrette need to do to win this fight against Oscar Valdez? Well, he needs to he has an 1.5 inch height advantage, but he has a 6-inch reach advantage. He needs to take advantage of that. He does not need to get in just an all-out war, and I think that's what makes Navarrette great, in my opinion. He fights the most like Juan Manuel Marquez because he's kind of has that awkward, almost counter-punching, attacking, counter-punching style. It's very hard to keep up with. He has those long arms, and that 6-inch reach advantage could really pay dividends. But he's got to use the angle, step to the side when Valdez is coming in, and he's got to be able to land those shots as he's coming in, those awkward punches that he always knows how to land. But he does not need to get into just an all-out war with him at all times, because that might be dangerous, because Valdez technically is the bigger man. In terms of frame though, body frame, in terms of being used to the division already. Now, so for me, it's about boxing, and it's about setting Valdez up, getting deep into the fight with the stamina to hold up, and definitely have the stamina to just be moving in the ring and using the angles and stuff and counterpunching. Now, can Emmanuel Navarrete win this fight by knockout? I think he can. Valdez has been hurt in the past, and Navarrete has a strong, has a way of being able to break down a fighter, break his will, and beat him. I think Navarrete could finish him. I think that's a possibility. Can Navarrete win this fight by decision? Yes, I think he can. I think he can outwork him. I think the fact that he's a little bit better of a boxer than Valdez, and he has that long reach and the height advantage, I think could go a long way. And I do believe he can win the fight by a decision. Now, what does a win mean for Emmanuel Navarrete here? It's probably going to be the biggest win of his career. To me, the biggest win prior of his career, you could argue, was either of the 2 victories over Isaac Dogboe. The first one was an upset to capture his first world title at 122. Then in a rematch 5 months later, he absolutely destroyed Dogboe, breaking him down and stopping him, in the 12th round. It was a more dominant performance. He left no doubt and retained his belt. For me, that was the better victory, but you could argue either one. Since then, he hasn't had another fighter on, even Dogboe isn't on Valdez's level. So at the time, Dogboe was a top guy at 122, and that was a big win, but Dogboe hadn't established himself the way Valdez has. Valdez has established himself as the man before, and he's been banging around for a few years now, being the WBO champ at 126 and holding that down for a minute and having some big fights. So to me, a decisive victory would be the biggest win of his career. So this fight means everything for Navarrete. And, I think he's hungry, and I think he knows that, and I think he's ready to really go establish himself. This is the kind of fight he's been waiting for, he's been wanting, and now it's here, and it's all on the table. So definitely a win would be huge for Navarrete. What does a loss mean for Navarrete in this fight? Well, it is kind of close to 50-50 in terms of favorite and underdog. So a loss, it really would hurt Navarrete. It would be the first since he became a world champion. It would depend on how he loses, though. If he loses a close decision, I don't think it's going to hurt him that much, because I think a lot of people feel this is going to be a good fight. But if he goes out there and he gets his ass whipped, and he gets knocked out or dominated, a loss it could hurt him a little bit more. But I don't know if I see this being a one-sided fight in kind of either direction. And if it is, I think it's going to be because of his height and reach advantage that makes it one-sided. So I don't think I don't think he's going to get beat down by Valdez. But a loss, of course, it hurts because he loses his title. but he might be able to do well enough to warrant a rematch. So I think he's in a good situation in terms of that. Now we switch it over to the challenger, the former 2-division world champion, Oscar Valdez, and we look at what he's done rolling into this fight. Well, Valdez is, we always go back to the last three. His last 3 fights date back to September of 2021, where he was coming off the biggest victory of his career, his brutal knockout of Miguel Berchelt to become the top guy at 130, I'm sorry. He would defend the WBC super featherweight title that night against Robson Conceição, a Brazilian contender. And it was not an easy night. I had Conceição decisively outboxing him in the first half of the fight. Second half of the fight, he did close the gap a little bit, but I still felt Conceição deserved a decision. But it went to the scorecards, was scored a controversial unanimous decision. There was also controversy about a positive test for banned substances going into the fight. He wasn't stripped of his belt, which was interesting, and that's kind of been overlooked, that fight. The next one after that was in April of 2022 when he attempted to unify belts against undefeated WBO champion Shakur Stevenson, and he soundly got outboxed in that fight. He was in it though. He was having his moments, but Shakur Stevenson was just way too good and completely dominated the action and the scorecards. One-sided unanimous decision loss. That was the first loss of his career. He's 31-1 and 23 knockouts. So, that was a tough one. But then he returned in May of this year, 13-month layoff, and he took on Adam Lopez in a rematch from a featherweight. I believe it was a title fight from a few years ago, where Lopez had knocked him down earlier on, and then Valdez came back in the fight and stopped him in the 7th round, somewhat controversially. In the rematch, though, on the Haney-Lomachenko undercard, Valdez left no doubt. Lopez was in the fight, but he just kept coming forward, kept breaking Lopez down, and walked away with a clean 10-round unanimous decision to shake off the loss to Stevenson. So now he's rolling into this fight much more confident than he would have been back in February coming off the loss to Stevenson. So it's a fight he believes he can win. He's a confident guy. He knows he's going to be competitive in this fight. What does he need to do to beat Emmanuel Navarrette? He needs to negate the reach advantage. He needs to get inside, and he knows Navarrete is going to move, so he needs to cut him off. He needs to cut him off at the angles and make sure Navarrete cannot get away. He needs to try to make it a war, but also bust up the body. If he can bust up Navarrete's body by getting inside and take some shots to the head on your way in. Take some shots, get inside, bust the body up to slow him down. And if he can get him into the late rounds with that strategy, he might have a serious chance of pulling off the win here and becoming a 2-time champion at 130. Now, can he win this fight by knockout? I think he can. I think he does have good power to where if he catches Navarrete, it would be, it could be a short night. But I think he's more of the break you down and wear you down type guy, and I think that is a possibility for Valdez too. Now, can he win a decision? I think it's going to be tough. I think because of the height and reach advantage, he's really going to have to dominate the rounds in order to take a decision from Navarrete, but that doesn't mean I don't believe it can happen. I do believe he can win a decision. I just think if it goes to the scorecards, it's going to be close for Valdez if he pulls a decision out. But I do think he can win. And what does a win mean for Oscar Valdez? Well, a win means, it means everything. It puts him right back in the driver's seat at 130 pounds where he wants to be. It sets him up as a possibility, like I said, for anyway, if he moves up at some point to 130, or Vasily Lomachenko if he moves down. The loss to Stevenson, nobody's really criticizing him too much for that, because Stevenson is a specially gifted fighter. So, a win here means a lot for Oscar Valdez because it confirms his top spot again at 130 pounds. Now, what does a loss mean for Valdez? Well, like I said with Navarrete, it depends on how he loses. It's close to a 50-50 fight in terms of favorite and underdog. Valdez is the underdog going in, but I think a lot of people do believe he can win this fight. So if he loses a close fight, or if it's a toe-to-toe knockdown, drag-out affair, and he gets stopped in the late rounds, or as I said, he loses a close fight, I think a rematch is in order. I really do. I think these two guys would want a rematch. So I don't think a loss would really hurt him that bad. But if he gets dominated, completely dominated, that might be different. If he gets completely dominated by Navarrette, that might make it a little bit different for him, and he might not have as easy of a time, bouncing back off of that. So we just got to wait and see. Now, is it better for boxing if Emmanuel Navarrete wins this fight or if Oscar Valdez wins this fight? And to be honest, I think it's about 50-50. I think in terms of name recognition and style, because people know him a little more, I think it's probably better for boxing if Valdez wins. But I think in terms of overall action style and the better fighter, potentially, I think it's better for boxing if Navarrete wins. So I think you can go either way. I think it's 50-50 right here. My last breakdown video was Spence and Crawford, and I said the same thing. I think it's about a 50-50 fight in terms of which fight is it better for boxing one way or the other. I really think you can go either way on is it better for boxing for either guy, because they both have proven a lot and and have been here, and I think it's big either way. Now, finally, what's my prediction? Who's gonna win the super featherweight showdown between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez for the WBO super featherweight title? And I gotta go with Emmanuel Navarrete. Ever since this fight was first announced, they first started talking about it, I just think his height and reach, but especially the reach advantage, but also his style. He doesn't have that prototypical all-out war Mexican style. He likes to mix it up. Again, he reminds me a lot of Juan Manuel Marquez, the way he, jumps in and hits you, but also counter punches you. I think it's a different, it's an awkward kind of style, but it's also all action, and he has the ability to break you down to the body, to the head, by throwing all those awkward punches from different angles. And I think he just has a distinct advantage over Valdez because of that. But Valdez, do not count him out. He's a grinder. He's a tough-ass fighter. He keeps fighting. Even when Shakur Stevenson was dominating him, it didn't seem like his will got broken in that fight. And that was impressive to me. So that means he's got a huge heart, and he's going to keep coming no matter what. And Navarrete is going to have to fight him the entirety of the fight before it either gets stopped or before it goes to the scorecard. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going Emmanuel Navarrete by a hard-fought but deserving unanimous decision win to retain the WBO super featherweight title. So that's it. That's what I got. That's my Navarrete versus Valdez breakdown video as they collide for the WBO super featherweight title on August 12th on ESPN. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.